Well, the wrecker service charged you hundreds of dollars for a 2-mile tow. A 90-year-old driver just rear-ended you in a parking lot, and the house you just rented is being foreclosed on. In each of these cases, the phrase, "there ought to be a law," likely came to mind. Maybe you have had your own frustrating example. At least we hope you do. 7 on your side's Jason Pederson joins us to explain why. Interesting project we've got.
Yeah, at some point during the past year, something has happened to you, or you've seen something happen to somebody else, and you said it to yourself. Now we want you to say it to us. Ought to be a law. 1 out of every 3 lawmakers has yet to file a bill of any kind this legislative session. But others are filling the void, like Senator David Johnson of Little Rock. Johnson has already sponsored 26 bills. And Senator Johnny Key of Mountain Home, he's already offered up 19. Where do legislators get the ideas for the bills they file? Many come from state agencies. Others are born out of personal experience, and some ideas come from you.
Almost all of our legislation is someone comes up and the word is, hey, there ought to be a bill about this, or there ought to be a law.
12 years ago, California State Senator Joe Simitian started asking his constituents to submit "there ought to be a law" ideas. 18 of those ideas did become law, including tougher guidelines on the use of cameras to issue traffic tickets, protections for renters during a time of frequent foreclosures, greater privacy protection for those who use public library computers, and preventing sweepstakes operators from selling customer information. Not all ideas became law, but contest winners got a lunch with the senator at the Capitol, the chance to testify on behalf of their idea, and a state flag. Representative Lenderman isn't promising lunch or a flag to citizens in his Craighead County district, but he is working on 2 bills because people have complained to him that the laws are too lax governing what is taken in by pawn shops and scrap metal yards.
I've had one farmer that in the past month has been hit twice and had over $10,000 worth of damage done. Another farmer had a motor bolted off. They couldn't load it. They tied it on behind a vehicle with a chain and drug it off so that they could sell it for scrap iron.
Lots of legislators listen to their constituents. Representative Jody Dickinson of Newport has filed a bill for someone who got crossways with a utility over the use of an easement. And Representative Kim Hammer of Benton has filed a bill on behalf of a citizen who lost land through eminent domain to a property owner's improvement district. So here's what you need to do if you have an idea that ought to be a law here in Arkansas. We've created a special email address. There ought to be a law, OUGHTA, ought to be a law at KATV.com, where you can send your suggestions. We will read them all, and we'll pick a few to feature on Friday nights. And who knows, maybe your idea could one day be the law of the land, at least here in Arkansas.
Yeah, this is a great idea. Have you already gotten in some feedback?
We've already gotten some ideas. We kind of promoted it on Facebook and Twitter, already coming in.
All right, look forward to those reports on Friday night. Jason, thank you.
When government has grand plans for a new highway, new electric, sewer, or gas line, or even the building of a library, ballpark, or convention center, the power of eminent domain is often exercised to get the project going. The taking, even with compensation of land, is often controversial. Such is the case with the example. 7 on your side's Jason Pederson is here to share with us tonight. Jason.
Christina, this case doesn't involve a lot of money. It really doesn't even involve a lot of land, less than half an acre and about $1,500, but it does involve a lot of passion. In fact, the landowners affected believe there ought to be a law so that what happened to them doesn't happen to anybody else. Seth Thomas points to where he thought he would one day live. It's an empty lot on family land that has been in the Thomas family for generations. It sits next to the home he grew up in, and the home where his parents still live. But now Seth's boyhood home and his dream of a future home have been intersected by an unwanted paved road. The home building business is bustling inside phases 3 and 4 of West Shore's subdivision along the north side of Hurricane Lake. The neighborhood has grown so large that a secondary entrance for emergency vehicles is necessary. There is 35 acres for sale in between Salem Road and West Shores, but that option wasn't taken. Developers also could have added indoor sprinkler systems to each home, which would have negated the need for a second access point. That option wasn't taken either. Instead, developers filed a lawsuit to take the Thomas's property and connect to Alyssa Lane.
I hope this don't happen to anybody else. This is an awful thing to happen. And it's caused a lot of hardships, and it's a bad thing that happened.
Here's where the problem lies right here. It's like Seth Thomas, a disabled veteran. He didn't have the money to fight an issue like this. He had to negotiate, you know.
Saline County Judge Lanny Fight says developer Ted Van Tassel and his partners were perfectly within their rights under current law to condemn Thomas's land. Property owner improvement districts currently have that power. That is why Fight believes the law needs to change.
It's egregious that a developer have the ability to condemn my property to put a road through it, you know.
State Representative Kim Hammer of Benton has filed a bill that seeks to limit the power of eminent domain for property owners' improvement districts. Seth Thomas is one who hopes it will pass. It won't help him, but he says it might help others.
I think he's going to do some good stuff where this won't happen to anybody else, and that would make it, you know, bittersweet.
Now, we wanted to ask the developers why they chose the option of eminent domain when other options were available, but on the advice of their attorney, Perry Young of Benton, they did not offer any comment about this matter, and neither did Young. The access road running between the property of Seth and Mark Thomas will be gated and limited in use to emergency vehicles. At least that's the plan going forward.
Now, that idea has already made it to the state capitol. Tell us a few of the other suggested laws that I know a lot of viewers have been emailing and calling with ideas.
Yeah, we got a lot of them. I've listed a few. How about a law that would mandate the sale of a storm shelter with the sale of every mobile home? Or double the sentence for anyone convicted of stealing the tools of someone's livelihood? One viewer wants laws to crack down on vehicles emitting excessive levels of either noise or pollution. Or how about limits for insurance rate increases? One viewer wants a statewide leash law. Another wants to crack down on bad contractors. What about criminal penalties for spreading lies about a person or a business online? Lots of good ideas. And if you have an idea, you can email it to us. Send it to thereoughtabelaw@katv.com.
And there'll be another segment next Friday night.
Next Friday, we'll take a look at another viewer proposal.
All right, some great ideas there, Jason. Thanks. A warranty issue has one Arkansas woman seeking a solution by suggesting legislation. We thank you for watching on this Friday night. I'm Christina Munoz.
And I'm Scott Inman. One of the key considerations when you're thinking about investing in a new roof, a swimming pool, a new car, or just about any other major purchase is the warranty. Well, 7 on your side's Jason Pederson is here with one woman's warranty woes, to say the least, Jason.
Yeah, Scott, we were contacted by a woman who lives in Benton after she discovered her warranty is no longer worth the paper it's printed on, but the man who signed it is still selling siding. She thinks there ought to be a law against that. It's been nearly 20 years since Louise Spivey and her husband decided to put new siding on their home. She's happy with the job, with one exception. It's hard to tell looking at this video, but with your own eyes, she says it's easy to see that the siding on the side of her home that gets the most sun has faded. So Louise called the number on her contract and asked if someone could come and take a look. You have a lifetime warranty on your siding, right?
Yes, in writing, signed by Kim Hankey, saying for the lifetime of the structure, any problems, repairs, they would take care of them.
Louise didn't know it, but just over a year ago, her old siding company, Hankey Brothers Siding and Windows Incorporated, filed for bankruptcy. The number she called went to a new siding company using the Hankey name, Hankey Brothers and Sons Incorporated.
It's not right. It's not right to the people who have written warranties to be told, hey, we've declared bankruptcy. You can get all the lawyers you want. We don't have to make good on the warranties.
Any warranty you ever get, whether it's from General Motors or whether whoever it's from, is only as good as the company that stands behind it. When that company is gone, then your warranty is gone.
But Louise says that's just it. Kim Hankey is not gone. She says she saw a television ad just the other day for Hankey Brothers and Sons featuring Kim Hankey as spokesperson selling siding. A letter delivered to KATV Friday morning explains that Kim Hankey is vice president of the new company, which is owned by his son. Gregory K. Hankey, the father, is in charge of sales and marketing for the new company as a paid employee on a commission basis. Gregory K. Hankey, the father, does not own any interest in Hankey Brothers and Sons Incorporated.
They told me that Mr. Hankey was still involved, but his son was the main owner now. But there's still the same address, still the same. I call the same phone number I'd called 20 years ago, I think. You know, something wrong when they can do that.
Louise says there ought to be a law that prevents a company from getting out of past debts and obligations, but still being able to enjoy past name recognition by reopening under a slightly different name.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
The federal bankruptcy process allows businesses to discharge liabilities and sell assets, including naming rights. Crow says the new company has an active license on file under the name Hankey Brothers Incorporated, but there's nothing on file for Hankey Brothers and Sons. Although there's no evidence that the new firm's use of the old Hankey name change was done solely to escape past obligations, Crow says if the contractor's licensing board suspects that, the agency will, and has in other cases, refuse to issue or renew a contractor's license.
It would be great if there was a more encompassing law that dealt with not just contractors, of course, whether it's a used car salesman who's issuing a warranty or whether it's any kind of business that's issuing a warranty. It would be great if you can't just shut that down and move on and shed those liabilities.
It is not against the law to slightly change your name and reopen as a new business. In fact, Crow says there are often very legitimate reasons to do it.
Just because someone applies for a license in a different name or a similar name doesn't necessarily mean it's suspicious. But we look at those closely when that does happen.
Now, our efforts over the past 2 weeks to get Kim Hankey, the father, to do an on-camera interview about Ms. Spivey's concerns were unsuccessful. Mr. Hankey has told us in phone conversations that he regrets the failure of his old business, but that Hankey Brothers and Sons is a totally new venture. He says all laws have been followed and the Hankey brand remains strong in Arkansas. Many lost a substantial amount of money when Hankey Brothers Siding and Windows Incorporated went through bankruptcy, including KATV. As for Louise Spivey, she says Kim Hankey, the father, did offer to replace her faded siding if she pays for materials and labor. She said no thanks.
Yeah, your story has us all looking at our warranties a little closer tonight. Jason, thanks very much. Well, you may not know this. 1 out of every 3 Arkansans is a renter. Yet Arkansas residential tenants have fewer rights than tenants in any other state. That is the finding of a nonpartisan commission charged with examining current tenant-landlord law in Arkansas.
One Conway woman is in total agreement. And 7 on your side's Jason Pederson joins us with her story. And in our continuing segment, there ought to be a law.
You know, it's happened to me. It may have happened to you guys. It's really no surprise when your landlord finds some flimsy reason to keep most or all of your security deposit. But the advantages landlords have over tenants in Arkansas go far beyond that. And one Conway woman facing eviction says there ought to be a law to help tenants. In fact, she says there ought to be several. On Monday, Ramona Staggs will begin a battle against melanoma cancer. A week later, she'll be facing eviction, even though she's paid up on her rent.
I asked him why he wanted me to move, and he said his words were because I aggravate him too much. The only time I call him is when something is broke.
Staggs says she has had problems with her toilet, her refrigerator, her heater, and her air conditioning. We had an HVAC repairman visit her mobile home on Friday. He tells us the air conditioning unit is a piece of junk. He says Staggs' landlord, Ricky White, had tried to adjust the thermostat's heat anticipator rather than put in a new thermostat, a move that Staggs says raised last month's electric bill by $100. What about your repair work? Are you licensed to do that?
I didn't know you had to be licensed to work on your own stuff.
And White is right. You don't. In fact, as a landlord in Arkansas, you don't have to fix stuff in your rent home at all if you don't want to, unless a local ordinance requires it. Not the heater, not the air conditioner, not the fridge.
Unfortunately, in Arkansas, there's no warranty of habitability.
Last year, Little Rock attorney Stephen Giles headed a 10-member commission that studied landlord-tenant laws in Arkansas. They determined that when a landlord and tenant are pitted against one another in this state, the deck is heavily stacked in the landlord's favor.
Under most circumstances, it's really not a fair fight, and we're just trying to even the playing field.
The commission's 36-page report recommends several changes in addition to advocating for a warranty of habitability, which would mandate that landlords keep their properties safe and livable. Arkansas is the only state where failing to pay rent can be considered a crime. The commission says that should be abolished. It also says there ought to be laws against retaliatory eviction and self-help eviction methods, like changing the locks or cutting off electricity. And how about a statute that would limit a landlord's access to an occupied property? Ramona would add a law that would require a landlord be licensed if he wants to work on electricity or plumbing.
If they're not certified to fix things, I think that they should hire somebody to fix it. And if they can't hire anybody to fix it, they don't need to be renting the places. I just think something needs to be done about how landlords treat tenants, especially single tenants that, you know, they think they can walk all over, and I just don't think it's right. I mean, we should have rights.
Her landlord calls Staggs a chronic complainer.
She just needs to move.
Now, despite the exhaustive work that his commission did, Giles is a bit concerned that nearly 2 months into the legislative session, no bills have been filed to strengthen tenant rights in Arkansas. He remains optimistic that something will be filed soon, and he expects some resistance from the lobbying arms of realtor and landlord groups. Tenants, of course, have no such lobbyists and are once again at a disadvantage. If you'd like to read the commission's 36-page report yourself, you will find a link to it when you visit this story at KATV.com.
Almost hard to believe some of those aren't already laws, but I know there's two sides to every story. All right, Jason, thanks so much.
Welcome back. Of all the ideas that have come in for our There Ought to Be a Law segment, it appears the first to become law will come to us from Seth Thomas. He's a disabled Iraqi war veteran who contacted us about a situation in which his land was taken so a developer could have another road in and out of a Saline County subdivision. State Representative Kim Hammer of Benton regrets that he can't help Seth Thomas. What's done is done.
Seth was very happy that we went through this effort because while he realized it was too late to do anything for him, he didn't want anybody else to have this kind of experience that they had.
The experience Hammer refers to is the taking of a small section of Thomas family land by a neighboring property owner's improvement district in order to build an access road for emergency vehicles.
And there were other options that they could exercise. This was just the cheapest one, and that's not right.
In this case, the developers of these phases of Hurricane Lake subdivision did nothing illegal. They had the right to exercise eminent domain and did. But Representative Hammer believes only government entities should have that power, and that is what his bill seeks to ensure.
What this bill does is do away with the property owners improvement district's ability to be able to exercise eminent domain over their neighbors for the purpose of putting a road or an easement into their property.
Now, Representative Hammer's bill cleared a Senate committee today. It's already cleared a House committee and a vote of the full House. No one has spoken against this bill. Hammer says that, as much as anything, is proof this is a loophole in the law that needs to be closed in order to better protect private property owners.